To the NATO pre-summit press conference happening live from the Netherlands. You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I believe they're taking questions from the media now.
Do you think regime change in Tehran would be good, or would you say don't go there? And then secondly, NATO has in the past intervened in regions outside the Euro-Atlantic. So I'm thinking of Libya in 2011, in Afghanistan. If Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz, it's a hypothetical, but you talked about NATO interests and defending its interests and responding. Would NATO intervene if Iran tried to close the Strait of Hormuz? Thank you.
Well, let me say the following. I have to restrain myself on commenting. Of course, I would love to do that and answer your first question, but as Secretary General of NATO, it is my job to make sure that the 32 allies have what they need to have in terms of spending, industrial production, the support for Ukraine. That's what this summit is focusing on. And anything I would now comment, other than what I said in my introductory remarks on Iran, is not helpful. It is deviating from the core issue at hand. And that doesn't mean that individual allies will not discuss this here. It doesn't mean that individual allies might bring it to the discussion on the table, at the table on Wednesday. Of course that can happen, but it's not why NATO. And when it comes to your second question, it is true that for some years NATO has been active in theaters outside NATO territory. I think maybe the biggest change in NATO since the fall of the Berlin Wall is that we have to reconcentrate on NATO territory, because NATO territory itself is under threat. NATO territory itself is confronted with the massive build-up of Russia, the massive build-up of the military capabilities in China, the fact that North Korea, Iran, China are helping Russia, making Ukraine not into a regional conflict, but really a conflict which is concerning the whole world community, and really concentrate on that.
Okay, we have time for just a few more questions. In the center, fifth row, the woman in the beige jacket.
Okay. Thank you. Bibiana Piene from Norwegian News Agency. Our Prime Minister, Jonas Gahr Støre, today declared that, I'm sorry, I have to go back to Iran, but he today declared that the US attack on Iran is in breach of international law. So I would like to hear your position on this. And also, if I may, what are your biggest fear when it comes to the escalating conflict around Iran? What could possibly happen? What do you fear most?
Now, my biggest fear would be Iran having a nuclear weapon. Really, let's focus on the essentials here. My biggest fear would be for Iran to own and be able to use and deploy a nuclear weapon. It would be a stranglehold on Israel, on the whole region and other parts of the world. And that is why NATO has said Iran should not, and this is a consistent position of NATO, Iran should not have its hands on a nuclear weapon. So, and I would not agree that this is against international law what the US did.
Okay, front all the way left.
Secretary General Latika Burke, The Nightly, Australia. Going back to everything that you have discussed about the integrated threat picture between the Indo-Pacific and the Euro-Atlantic, is it your advice to Indo-Pacific countries that they also raise their defence spending to the new NATO standard?
Well, obviously, let me also here try to limit myself a little bit. I'm already very glad that as an alliance we will decide most likely on Wednesday. There is an agreement in the North Atlantic Council on this to move to get to this minimum of 5% of defense spending. And I think that's great news to deliver all the targets we have set ourselves. Of course, I would not be against our friends in other parts of the world spending more. But for me then to have an active goal on this, I think is not befitting my position.
Okay, we'll come back to this side. The woman in the dark hair and the dark jacket.
Thank you. Victoria Klipka from TV8, Republic of Moldova. I address this question from the part of our media delegation.
Right.
So, As you know, parliamentary elections will be held in Moldova this autumn, and the outcome of the vote will be crucial for the country's future in Europe. Russia has now given up on its plans to stop Moldova on its tracks, and it's utilizing the entire arsenal of hybrid warfare tactics is tested and refined during the last year's presidential elections. So Moldova returns to Russian sphere of influence would be not only dangerous for Moldova, but for the entire region. What is the view from NATO headquarters on the situation in Moldova, and how could NATO and its allies help Moldova to resist this unprecedented wave of hybrid warfare waged by Russia?
Well, I can assure you, from my previous roles, Prime Minister of the Netherlands, we were active helping Moldova as a country, and I'm sure it still continues. As NATO, there is a close cooperation with Moldova on these very practical issues, and Maya Sandu, the President of the Republic, myself, I visited her a couple of months ago when I returned from Odessa, and it was a very pleasant discussion. We are closely coordinating. I know that Romania, our ally, Bucharest, Romania, is of course also very much involved, making sure that Moldova can defend itself as much as possible against hybrid threats.
Okay, and one final question. The woman in the yellow jacket here.
Thank you for this opportunity. Secretary General, with the war in Ukraine, ongoing and rising tensions in the Middle East, along with US involvement, would you say NATO is facing one of its most challenging security moments? In light of that, could this wider instability also impact the Western Balkans? Should we from the Western Balkans be worried? Thank you.
Well, of course, the Western Balkans, 5 of the 8 Western Balkan countries are part of NATO, including Montenegro, Albania, North Macedonia, and obviously Slovenia and Croatia. So NATO is very much as a collective present. And then, of course, we have in Kosovo, KFOR, and we work closely with the European Union when it comes to Bosnia and Herzegovina and EUFOR. So there are close cooperations, and I'm myself in a sort of permanent dialogue with the President of Serbia, whom I know very long, who is a close friend, but at the same time we do not always agree, and it is important to keep that conversation going. So generally, when it comes to the Western Balkans, you can be assured that individual allies, but also as a collective, we are very much focused on that part of Europe. More generally, to your question, I think it is spot on, and it is a very good last question, because let's not kid ourselves. The security situation has dramatically changed over the last couple of years. Of course, in 2014, with the occupation of Crimea, but particularly with the full onslaught in 2022 on Ukraine, and since then, this massive reconstituting of Russia, of its armed forces. At the same time, they working together with the North Koreans, with the Chinese, with the Iranians, and China itself also rapidly building up its armed forces to levels we have never ever seen before. So the international security situation has changed dramatically, and that means that this summit is so important, because what we need to have is that when the call comes to any individual ally to deliver to the collective endeavor what is necessary to defend NATO territory in case of an Article 5 attack, then we have to be sure that all allies are able to deliver those capabilities, what they promised to deliver, so that when that call comes, we stand there together, united, not only in spirit, but also in practice. And that is why we have to meet this much higher defense spending goal than we have currently.
All right, thank you all so much.
Thank you so much.
We look forward to seeing you again on Wednesday afternoon.
Thank you.
As you're watching here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus at 9:45, the press conference on the pre-summit, NATO pre-summit that's going to be taking place on Wednesday, happening this morning, taking that live here at 9:45.